And I will now introduce Vikram Gazula, who will take us to the next chapter in our tutorial. Vikram has spent more than 25 years in research computing and cyber infrastructure, supporting scientific discovery. At University of Kentucky, he designs and operates production-scale high-performance computing and AI platforms, develops research software environments, and helps researchers optimize large-scale, accelerated, and data-intensive workloads. He's nationally engaged with NSF Access and NAIR. He helps build AI-enabled services. And he's also a co-PI here. And his current work focuses on AI-enabled research services, resource discovery, research, facilitation, and strengthening the national cyber infrastructure and AI workforce. So please welcome Vikram Gazula.
Thank you, Lily. So I'm facilitating this particular session. My name is Vikram Gazula. I'm from Center for Computational Sciences at the University of Kentucky. My day job is I'm a research facilitator, but also I'm one of the co-PIs on this plan and this program. And thank you very much for coming this morning and spending your time with us. I really appreciate this. So Tony did mention what CCMNet is all about, but this is what I feel is that what we're going to talk about in this session is about the mentorship impact stories. This is very important, right? How we are impacting the communities and what we're trying to do. We want to hear those stories from our community and tell those things. For me, personally, mentorship is not just about explaining things to people or trying to tell what we know and share. No, it's all about sharing our experiences, creating relationships, and how we impact the community, right? So during this session, we're going to have two of our members from our community, Devin Bayley and also Dan Voss. We want them to talk to us, tell us about what exactly mentorship meant for them. How did these mentorships kind of impacted the team's mentoring and all the good stories what they've done. So Devin Bailey is from Arizona State University of Arizona, and I would like you to come here and tell us about your impact stories about how his mentorship and what exactly he's been doing for the last 2 months and how it's impacting actually. Please welcome Devin. Devin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Minneapolis. This is fun. I actually went to school here for 1 year and then took 5 years off. So coming back. I'm from Tucson. I guess maybe the cold up here was enough for me. I'm a data and visualization consultant in the Research Technologies Department at the University of Arizona. And I've been lucky enough to receive many different instances of mentorship over time. And one in particular set me on the track to what I do, with my current role. So in undergraduate, I did math and neuroscience, and I got visualization support from one of the faculty in the CS department as I worked on a project called Mental Landscapes. And it was all about trying to help people understand things about imaging, like the MRI technology and different types of cells in the brain. And I used virtual reality and a couple of different visualization technologies for that. And then a couple of additional assets. So I did these little cartoons that help people understand things. And at one point, I also had a cardboard cutout of myself that people could scan a QR code and they would see my brain data next to me. And so if you were looking at me and thinking that guy has a cardboard cutout of himself, then yes, you were correct. So the mentorships that led to this position feel like, it's time for me to, provide some more. So CCMNet has been a natural connection for me. So I participated in a few. One of them was the Skilling Up on National Resources with Becca Belshi and Farouk Garamani. And the idea was it was more peer-to-peer. So we would actually meet up and then think about what is available at the national scale cyber infrastructure level that we're not aware of, that we could be learning about and then turning around and teaching people at our institutions about. The other mentorship I led, it was the Deep Learning Institute Instructor Certification. I had gone through this process and I found it to be particularly difficult. And I decided if anyone else was interested in it, that I would come back and try to help people navigate that. So those are the experiences that I'm going to be talking about today. I also led the second one there a couple of times. So in terms of what we, got up to in these different mentorships for folks who aren't necessarily familiar with the program or what goes on. In the Skilling Up on National Scale Infrastructure or Resources, we met and we sort of challenged each other to think about what might one of your constituents need, and are you familiar with all of the resources that are out there around the country through access that could actually help them with that. These conversations built into a presentation that we worked on together that Farouk gave at a couple of different conferences for smaller institutions to think, oh, we don't have that on site, but we could make use of these available resources elsewhere. And there were plans for creating a brochure and even a flowchart describing all of the offerings inside of the Access ecosystem. I will talk about lessons learned and the broader impact, of where did that go or where did that not go, and I'll in just a minute. But for the DLI mentorship, this one, there's more concrete outcomes that I can speak about. So we had something like, over 10 people, registered at one point. And this again is a rather difficult program to work with. And so more than 5 people actually submitted applications. And then, these numbers just keep trickling down. So we had 4 people enter the program, and then 2 of them got certified. It's everything that I'm saying. This NVIDIA program is very difficult for folks to navigate and for the to receive basically a certification to teach workshops at your institution. So the 2 people who were certified, I'm very proud of them, Daniel Howard and Michael Ramshaw. Daniel's with UCAR, NCAR, and Michael Ramshaw's with the University of Utah. And Daniel's actually given 2 workshops now. One of them was specifically for UCAR to learn about how to do deep learning training on multiple GPUs or multiple locations. And the other one he taught at RMAC. It was a full day workshop. I don't know if anyone went to that conference or had a chance to participate in that. But I thought it was so exciting because having an offering like that where somebody can come to that conference, that small regional event, and actually come away with a certificate that they can add to their resume is pretty exciting. I know that Michael is actually planning to give a couple of workshops as well. So we've got 2 more in the fall. But the entire program has done a hard left. The organizers at NVIDIA have changed basically the entire thing. And so as a result, the outcome of the mentorships, I don't feel comfortable trying to steer people through a process I no longer understand. So I have wrapped and completed. So all in all, from the Skilling Up on National Resources mentorship, I learned, what people probably often do in their mentorships, that these things grow and they change over time. And you might have said, I'm engaged for this goal. And then in the course of the mentorship, if that goal becomes something else, then, you can either follow that or you can think to yourself, what would I do with this time if I was spending it differently? So I think one of the lessons that I found in this process is that you have to cleanly communicate if you're still interested and invested in a mentorship. And we're all adults. And so that's an important thing to be able to say, because if you don't, we're all trusting each other to be involved in or engaged in these engagements. And so and that then sort of, is reciprocated by the people who are in the mentorship with you. So I don't know. I think at that point I said, I was really interested in the original goals of this mentorship, where we were just training up and learning about resources. And the ideas of the brochure and this flowchart are less interesting to me. And so we ended up, I moved more in the direction of the other mentorship here. For the deep learning mentorship, a big lesson was that scheduling and the strategy you take to planning your schedule and the time that you have for meeting with people, it takes a lot of consideration. So you definitely need to invest time into how you're going to do that. At some point, I said, I'm going to take this program, make it asynchronous. And I underestimated how much scaffolding you need to provide, like additional documentation, forms that people are going to go through, email systems, ways to keep people engaged if you're not meeting with them regularly. So The other lesson was that external programs like working with NVIDIA or another partner, they have pros and cons, you know. You can tie into existing incentive structures that will make people excited to participate, but then you have almost no control outside of what you get to do with your actual mentees. So, you know, it's definitely a thing I'm keeping in mind as I go into the future. So as I, you know, did these mentorships and participated with CCMNet, you know, I filled out knowledge base articles so people can read up on what we did during the basically the year that I was involved in these things. And I provided a lot of feedback to the NVIDIA Deep Learning Institute group, maybe too much. At some point, it was kind of funny to see that all of the grievances that I had brought up got worse, where they said, we now have no way for people to apply if they're not already known by an industry partner, apparently. And this has very much shaped my future plans for mentorship. I'm doing an existing one on visualization, which is a much smaller scope, much smaller group, lots more outcome control. And just overall, I feel so much more connected to the RCD community. So I feel very seen in the efforts that I've done here, and that has told me I want to keep doing mentorship. So thank you, everybody. Those were my experiences.
Thank you so much, Devin. So what we have seen here is, Devin, how much formal this particular mentorship was, and we're going to hear now from Dan. And Dan has been a part of our community for a long time. He's the director for the Research Computing Corewell Health Research Institute.
Hi, I'm Dan Voss. As Vikram said, I'm the director of research computing for a health institute out of Detroit. And my experience as a first-time mentor was exact opposite of Devin, and I had absolutely no idea what the outcomes would be. I had no experience about what I was going to do, but I thought, let's give it a shot. So my first one was how to be or how to become a boss. And I knew there was, I talked to people a lot, and I guess that was my feeling was I don't know how to help people, but I know a lot of people who can help, and I was going to connect people with our mentees to figure that out. So in the beginning, we had, I think, 3 that started that are all in this room, and then it kept doubling every month I did it, because I'd give an update on our monthly meetings, and people are like, well, that sounds cool. What did you do? And they would join the mentorship. So mine wasn't just a single, hey, let's do this. I had no idea what it's going to be, but it kept growing and growing and growing. So it ended up with like 8 people from across the country. And our goals were to see not a specific topic. So when I saw like Vikram did a very cool talk of peer-to-peer, let's solve this thing. I'm very smart about this thing. Let's do it. And like Devin, the same thing. And I knew I didn't have that, but I could hopefully figure out what the people wanted, ask them specifically. Let's not go with help you with a topic. Let's see, what do you want to learn? What do you want to know? What are you missing that is in your purview? Who do you want to know that is in your area? Because that's the one thing I could bring to the table was I know a lot of people in this world, in this area, and a lot of us come from other backgrounds, other areas, and then just fall into research computing or don't know the path to go somewhere because we don't have a very structured, we're getting one, a structured workforce development, hiring path. HR doesn't believe we're real people. Our job descriptions don't exist in HR. So that's some of the things I was trying to figure out with these people. So yeah, the other trick was learn from other bosses in their journeys. So I tailored the sessions based on, I had individual meetings with each mentee. I asked them what they wanted to do, what their aspirations were. And then I would try to find people I knew. Guest speakers I brought in, like Shelley Knuth from Colorado, because we had a lot of women and women HPC, and they're like, well, how do we get to the next level? I'm like, well, let me bring someone in who did that and let her tell her story. So that was a huge thing, is just bringing the people in that has similar stories. Also brought in someone from Nebraska, because we had a one of our mentees came from like a professor postdoc role. And he was like, well, I moved into this field. I have no idea what you guys do. I'm like, well, let me have a guy who did the same thing, came from physics, had full, PhD, postdoc things, and he has been in this thing for 10 years now, and he's done the levels and the training and get up. And so this is great for him too. So that was how I helped, I guess, guide the mentorship. As they say, you build the plane as you're flying it. That was my philosophy. And the other thing was, I decided it was going to be a a safe space. I'm not going to share a lot of the things we talked about in our meeting. So part of the CCMNet was you're supposed to have an end wrap up. Here's our knowledge base of things that you're supposed to know. And I'm like, I'm going to skip that piece because what you know is based on what you learned from the mentorship and specifically tailored towards you. So I do have some general overview things, but nothing specific. And we try to make it as safe and open as like, I don't know how to get to this place. Or I don't know this much about my thing in my job. So let's keep that safe and work with each other to learn how to do those things better. And then I guess for success, I didn't know how to measure success either, but after this wrapped up, it was a 7-month mentorship, monthly meetings from March to October 2025. And then I decided to do a volume 2 version. And this one was based on all the boring stuff you need to know to sound legit, like accounting and HR and people, and just all the other things. And 75% of my mentees from the first one came the second one. So for me, I didn't know that at the time, but I think that's a very good measure of success and a need and want from the community that you need not just the technical skills, but the soft skills and other things, and other non-tangible things to become better at what you do. My other measure of success, from this PEARC workshop last year, someone suggested she's in the room, Jin Lee. She had research facilitators. She just came back to Stanford. She's like, can you sound like someone who could probably help with something I need some research facilitation, but once again, they come from other fields and do other things, put something together to help them be better in our community. So I started that one this month, and half of the people from my boss one are in my how to become a research facilitator one, and also in my boss, which is great. So, right, it's very important. I think the soft skill thing is cool. And my last thing is, one of my invited speakers to my first boss mentorship joined the mentorship, even though he's already a boss, because, right, there are always skills and things you can learn from other people in our community. I thought that was very cool. That was one of my measures of success. So that is, I think, my 7 minutes.
Yes.
And there you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Dan or Devin, the questions. I'll ask a question, both for Dan and Devin. What advice you would give somebody who wants to become either a mentor or a mentee in this community? What would you say? I mean, people are so nervous about a lot of things, and how do I start these kind of things? What advice would you give them?
But I like what Devin said too. I mean, first, just join one, just see what it's like, and just figure that out. If you're scared, don't want to do it, but then pick something that you know that you have any idea about. Just don't follow mine. I had no idea, but someone else like Devin or whatever, just something that you have a knowledge in. And it can be a short mentorship. It can be what are short one? A few weeks, right? Just try it. Like, hey, I can do this one thing that's really cool that I do in my job or whatever, and I want to show it to you. I don't know what that would be, but simple, right? Make it simple. Make it as simple as I know how to turn on my Jupyter notebook and run this thing that helped this one person, right? It doesn't have to be special, but it could be a skill that someone's like, oh, I was trying to do that. Let me join it and then just work it out. So yeah, just walk in and try. Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly my note. And so the only other thing I would add would be, think pretty broadly too. We were joking a little bit at the very beginning of the session today to have a mentorship about like, what is your hobby outside of this? And can you teach like a 5-minute thing about that? And I feel like a lot of us, we just zero in on this stuff. And I feel like we don't forget that we've got other aspects of our lives that we can also connect. And I think that's why PEARC is such a wonderful conference, because that just naturally comes out in conversations with people. And so, I mean, we've got a very healthy representation of some very deep technical materials in CCMNet so far. And I think, I want to see more people just sort of engaging with each other as regular people as well. So I think, exactly what Dan's saying too, keep it low level, keep it easy, and don't think that you're going to do it for like the next year. But, that would be my suggestion.
Any other questions for? Yeah, we've got a question now.
Yeah. So maybe this is from every perspective, and of course I always want to talk on membership or vendors if I'm looking for a membership. But I would like to know exactly how can I choose which mentorship? Like, if there are so many, where it should be something that I'm interested in or something I am working on as my first year as a RCD professional, what do you think that I should look for when I am looking for a mentorship?
So how to prioritize which one? I do them all. Just sign up for all of them, and then when you hear the people and you're like, I like that one, you can drop it. It's fine, drop out. No, it's yeah. I guess it depends on what is your current want, right? What do you need? What do you want to do? Yeah, Devin.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Museum of Art recently and I saw two people come in and one person closed their eye and pointed at a part of the map. And the other person said, we're going to that exhibit. So I feel like you can kind of do the same thing with the website. But no, realistically, come to the monthly meeting, see who's in the room during that meeting, and then connect that to the stuff that's on the website. Because I think a real piece that I want to say is that there are a lot of people who have said they're really excited about this thing. But I think activity and seeing who's still around is really like the best marker of success. So start there. Absolutely make sure it's part of what you're interested in. That's just, I guess, what you're already probably thinking yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then go broad, like Dan is saying, because if you cast a bunch of these nets, and some of them don't pan out, some of them will. So, okay, that's all I've got.
Thank you.
How do you find the monthly meetings?
So there's a waiting list and please sign up for our on the portal for the activity groups and then you reach about that one. We have it on the third Thursdays of every month. It's for about an hour and feel free to drop in, join, chat with us, anything. I mean, we're not very formal, like I said, we're not a very formal group. We'll be there. Sometimes there are about half a dozen people and sometimes there are about 10 or 15 people. We just chat what's happening and we update on our mentorship, what's happening.
And pitch an idea. Maybe you don't want to do the mentorship, but you have an idea that you want someone to start a mentorship that you want to join. Do that in the meeting. Do that. I mean, do that right now. Do you have a mentorship you want to learn something about? What do you want to know?
What was the most satisfying thing you did as a mentor? And the second would be, what was the most challenging? What did you think was the biggest challenge that you faced?
I'll start on challenging time zones. I now have ones from Hawaii to East Coast, and then these Arizona people don't do daylight savings time, which makes it all weird every other 6 months. So that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge again was having the whole program shut down underneath me. And each time that I would have people apply and then the organizers would say, oh, we didn't get that application. That was a huge challenge.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'll let you jump in with that one.
What was most satisfying thing?
A few things. So yeah, one of my mentees became a boss during one of my mentorships. And I think what we did helped him. That was actually a tangible thing, is like we gave advice and he asked questions and we ran through some just that was really cool. And then I think like the speaker joining my mentorship and then like some of the leadership team joined one of my like, you guys are already leaders. I look up to you, and they're like, we could always learn more. Like that's a crazy thing. I didn't know the breadth that people would be like, these are things that I can learn that I still don't know. And also to share their knowledge too with these people. That's really cool. The community of people coming together to work together to help bring people up. Like that's the coolest part.
Yeah, I think, the most satisfying thing was seeing Dan teach 2 workshops. He came back, like he didn't pass his certification the first time, he retook it and then was able to actually teach. I think he got like something like 20 or more people certified each time. So that was very satisfying to see. And then when I wrapped the second time and I told people about, what changes have been made in the program during the monthly call for CCMNet, I got emails from people afterward that said, we really see that you've tried, and so I feel like that reminder, and that validation for my effort was everything I needed to keep going forward. So thanks for that question. That was a great question.
We'd like to thank both Dan and Devin. Thank you very much for sharing our stories, and we're going to segue into our next topic. So